A lot of us are not hiring proactively, we're hiring reactively. We had a team member leave, we had this happen, we're growing too fast. And a lot of times you're saying, man, I need to get this hired. And so what happens is you almost attempt to pay. If those things end up being deal breakers for that individual, you have just poured a ton of time, money, and energy into that person only to have them leave down the line. The business has grown, or whatever capacity that was strained before probably becomes even more strained because now you have fewer team members to service this higher number of clients. Gympire builders, here's a hiring tip that will save you time, money, and a hell of a lot of headaches. Let's dive into it. So I've absolutely made more than my fair share of hiring mistakes over the years. Management mistakes, you name it. I've probably made the stinking mistake. However, one thing that's got brought up in our last Gympire Mastermind meeting, if you'd like to apply, there are 2 spots remaining. Go ahead and apply at buildyourgympire.com. Plugs aside, this came up in our last meeting, and I think it's such an important tip that can save you, again, as I said, so much time, so much money, so many headaches when it comes to building your team. And it really all comes down to this. Talk people out of the job before you try to sell them on it, and definitely before you make the decision to hire them. Here's why. Look, I get it. Hiring can be hard. It can be, oh, where do I put up my job at? Oh, I'm not getting enough applications, or I'm getting too many applications. How do I filter through these? Do I need to look at the resumes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's all of these challenges that come along with hiring. It can be overwhelming. There's the administrative side. There's all of these things that can sort of weigh on you throughout the hiring process. And it can make you a lot of times want to rush the decision. Hell, let's be honest. A lot of us are not hiring proactively. We're hiring reactively. We had a team member leave. We had this happen. We had that happen. We're growing too fast, whatever it is. And a lot of times you're saying, man, I need to get this hired. I get this hired as fast as I can. And so what happens is you almost attempt to pay. You put on your rose-colored glasses, shout out classic country legend John Conley. You put on your rose-colored glasses and basically try to sell the person on it and kind of, hey, let's pretend all this negative stuff that might happen when you're working here just doesn't exist, and hope that we can sort of work through it as we get deeper and deeper into the relationship. And the unfortunate thing that can happen is if you don't do this step, you say you're in a hurry, man, maybe this person's good enough. Let's just go ahead and get them in and we'll figure out the rest as we go. The unfortunate thing that can happen is you put in weeks, sometimes months into training the person, pouring into the person, paying the person, right? Spending not just money, and sometimes very significant money, but also time. And if not your time, the time of your team, into bringing this person on board, you've stopped the rest of your job search, right? You say, okay, this is done. We've got the guy or the gal who's going to take us into the promised land, whatever it is. And unfortunately, all too often, it doesn't work out that way. Things you tried to hide from them, whether it's, yeah, we don't have systems and processes like a Fortune 500 company, or certain things are messy, or you might have to work a split shift, or sometimes clients aren't necessarily the nicest people they could possibly be. All of these potentially negative things, which may happen in whatever the position is. Every position has a downside, or things that might not be perfect, or things that the person on the other side might struggle with, et cetera, et cetera. If those things end up being deal breakers for that individual, you have just poured a ton of time, money, and energy into that person only to have them leave down the line. Now you're starting not just back from square one, really not even at square zero. You are probably even further behind than you were when you first made the decision to hire, because odds are pretty good the business has grown, or whatever capacity that was strained before probably becomes even more strained because now you have fewer team members to service this higher number of clients. And now you're in an even bigger hurry. So you sort of compound the mistake. Let's rush. Let's get somebody else in. Let's skip the important stuff again. And now, the problem just compounds and the business gets stuck, goes down this downward spiral, all because we weren't willing to have the tough conversation beforehand. And so frankly, I feel like this is great advice for hiring. I also think it is great. I'm no dating relationship expert, but I think it's great advice for getting into a relationship, particularly a serious relationship, as well. I want you to know that, like, I snore, oh, my feet smell, whatever it is, before we decide to get in bed together. To be a little bit more serious about it, picture getting into this long-term relationship. You're with this person for years and years and years. They're going to be the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. You decide to get married. Oh, great. And then it's 2 years into the wedding. You start talking about kids, and the person on the other side is like, I don't want kids. And you're like, having kids is the most important thing to me in my life. It's my highest priority. And you don't want that. Well, great. How does that end? In a sticky, icky divorce, right? Or one of you gives up a big, crazy, sort of values-driven compromise that leads to resentment, a terrible relationship, and honestly probably ends in divorce, right? The story doesn't have a happy ending either way. And frankly, I think the same thing is true for hires. You say, well, what if, I can't get people to work for me and so on and so forth? Dude, spoiler alert, if your mission is big enough, if you've got a cool enough position, and being in the fitness industry, it's kind of easy, right? We get to wear sweatpants every day and get paid to do it. It's kind of a fun thing. So people that want to be in the fitness industry, they know they want to be in the fitness industry. And if you can be transparent about the dirty laundry beforehand, which might be, all right, look, like this is the current situation. I'm going to kind of talk you out of this a little bit. And I feel like if we get through us talking you out of it, you still end up wanting to do it, then maybe it's something that we should explore. That is the thing you should totally say to your job prospect is, look, so to be totally transparent with you, and your situation is going to vary. I'm just going to give you some things that maybe I've shared with potential employees over the years that have ended up being, I think, overall a positive thing. And it's even better, frankly, if you can sell a worse picture of what things are on the inside and then have things end up being a little bit better than what they expected, because now the person's even happier, right? There's some quote somewhere that says so much of the source of most unhappiness in life is just unmet expectations. And so if you can invert that and say, well, maybe I can set expectations really low and then you're gonna be super happy once we exceed them. Like, I think there may be something to that. And so in job roles, for us in this agency space, like there's stuff that we have not, that I don't have experience hiring for. Now I could scale gyms all day long, right? Scale a handful of my own and have coached hundreds of people at this point to scale their own gyms, right? To multiple locations, multiple seven figures, all those different fun things. And so while, scaling gyms is easy, I did not necessarily know how to scale an agency. And so there have been positions that we have hired for, like, look, I don't necessarily know what I'm doing in this case. This is going to be messy. Our systems are kind of all over the place. We don't have this, the other structure. Like, I'm not necessarily the easiest person to work with, right? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is going to be a messy thing. And what was interesting is the person on the other side was like, yeah, like, this is awesome. This is what I want to dive into. This is what I want to clean up. And so me talking that person out of it almost created a stronger relationship, a stronger bond, and made me understand that the person on the other side was an even better fit for the position than if I hadn't talked about it at all. Same thing can happen in the fitness industry. Okay, look, like these are the hours of the position, blah, blah, blah. Starting off, I'm just gonna be totally transparent with you. This can be a deal breaker, but I'd rather figure it out now than later. You are going to be expected to work XYZ number of split shifts on a weekly basis, particularly as we start off and scale this thing. I think we may be able to move out of that in X number of months or weeks or whatever it is. But starting off, this is the expectation. It is long hours. It is this. It is that. Whatever the negatives are, you might be a tough person to work for, right? So you may be somebody that is not necessarily like, look, if you're doing something wrong, I'm going to let you know. I'm going to tell you. We're going to have that honest conversation. And some people aren't used to getting feedback in prior roles, right? They just want to think they're the best person ever. So like, I need you. If you're going to be working here, I need you to be coachable because I'm going to coach you hard. How bad does that scare you? And hopefully the person on the other side will be like, yeah, I definitely want to do this. Now, to be very clear, I'm not telling you to use the things that I just said necessarily, right? They need to be things that actually apply to you, your business, your gym, your position that you're hiring for, et cetera. But please, 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 and I know this is going to be a super short episode, but I cannot overestimate the importance of this and how impactful it has been to me in really any number of avenues in my life, and really even avenues of the business. If you can take the time and have the guts and the honesty to have the tough conversation before you dive into a relationship, guess what happens, right? All of a sudden, you are only bringing people on. And I shouldn't say that this is going to make all of your hiring woes, all of your management woes, your employee issues, disappear overnight. It's not going to happen that way. You're still going to have issues. But I mean, come on, if we can take half, 75, 80, 90% of the issues that you would have with that individual after they became a hire, after you've put them on payroll, after you've paid them for months and months, and weed out those issues before we take the time, before we take the money to bring that person on board, tell me that's not something that would be awesome for your business. And if you're still single, guess what? Like, it's probably something that would be awesome for your dating life as well. Because if the person on the other side is totally cool with whatever your issues are, and I feel like we could probably go too extreme, we could probably share like too much of the negative. If the person on the other side is cool with whatever your issues, idiosyncrasies, etc. are, then hey, there's a chance that you guys could be a pretty good fit. And that doesn't mean that you're going to marry the person or bring that hire on, give them equity and turn them into your COO or vice president, whatever the heck it is overnight. But it gives you a chance and it gives you a real nice solid foundation to work from. And like I said, it's going to save you time, energy, and in some cases, most importantly, headaches in the long run. Start doing that with your hires. You can thank me later.